What's new and what's happening in the fast-paced world of everyday professional life? We keep you up to speed on the daily hustle and grind of today's industry pros and what they may be up to after hours.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are once again back for another episode of Hustle and Grind by KMC Podcast. So, in today's episode, I believe we're going to talk about the real estate outlook and workforce strategy. But before we lead to that, I would like to introduce myself as a part of KMC Solutions, who's heading the Enterprise Solutions team, Casey Gamboa, and I'll be hosting today's episode. And before that, before we describe first our episode details for today, would like to welcome our guest speaker, who has been the expert in the real estate industry, none other than our executive director from KMC Savills, Carbonell. Welcome, Cha.
Hi, good afternoon, Casey. So nice to be here. So nice to be a part of the Hustle and Grind podcast series of KMC Solutions. So happy to address any questions that you may have for today.
All right, and thank you for coming over to one of our sites here in Gamma.
Really nice, huh?
Yeah, where we have this official KMC podcast studio, right? So we really built this one since we've been planning to have a series of podcasts all throughout the year. And so we're happily doing that, and we've been issuing each and every week some brand new episode. So for today, I believe our discussions are about Metro Manila's real estate outlook and how the shift from the traditional office spaces today may change the workforce setting in the future. Because right now we've been seeing a lot of changes since the pandemic started, right? And perhaps you'll be the perfect person to explain to us what transpired and what do you think is going to happen in the future. And with that, we should start with the first question that we have in our schedule. So under commercial real estate market outlook, the question is, given the decline in the occupancy this year, 2020, how are we doing right now that we are in the first few days of December? How are you going to describe it?
Right. So, we actually came up with our third quarter report on Metro Manila with regard to the vacancies and the occupancy in the market. And that will eventually lead to, the flow of the conversation on what the trends are going to be during this new normal. Even if I hate that word, I think that's something that we have to use moving forward. But just to give you a background of the total stock of Metro Manila Grade A offices, so we currently have approximately 5.9 million square meters of current stock in the office market, Grade A. And then if you are to compare it from third quarter of last year, there was an increase of vacancy from 5.4% third quarter last year, and third quarter of this year is at 7.3%. And what we're trying to do in the last few months is to actually also track not just new available stock but negative take-up. Negative take-up meaning offices or occupiers who have pre-terminated their leases before expiration. So in terms of negative take-up, officially what's been recorded, not including any pre-leases, there's approximately 43,800 square meters of negative take-up as of third quarter of 2020.
Again, how many percentage?
So that's actually 10% of the current stock vacancy is around 430,000 square meters across Metro Manila. So 10% of that accounts for the negative take-up.
So meaning these are the clients that pre-terminated their leases.
Pre-terminated their leases. So across different locations in different areas. And one of the things that we've noticed when I did look at the data that we have, so Makati, for example, historically, they've enjoyed a sub 2% vacancy over the last 5 years. But right now, they're at around 3.3%. So in terms of their Grade A offices pa lang, this doesn't include their Grade B and the Grade C offices in Makati. That's around 39,300 square meters approximate of Grade A offices available, the vacancy. BGC would have around 87,000 square meters of available stock.
Quite a lot.
Yes, in terms of vacancy, that's 4.8%. Ortigas and QC would be above 10%. Historically, Ortigas would always have like a tight vacancy. So like right now, Tigas would have 17.6%, around 130,000 square meters of vacant spaces. QC have around 14% vacancy, 100,000 square meters. Bay Area, before or the last 2 years, because of the sign-ups of BOGO occupiers in the market, from now they're at 4%. There are a lot of terminations that happened in the Bay Area, but at the same time, it increased their vacancy from like sub 1% up to 4%. So it's around like 40,000 square meters.
Yeah,
These
that's a
are
big
the
jump.
official,
Yeah.
that's a big jump. That's officially recorded pre-terminations in the market right now. So what does this tell us? I guess in terms of the office market, given also that PEZA have extended the work from home up to 90% for the PEZA registered entities up to September 2021. What does this tell us is for us to like come up with ways on how to pivot, especially the landlords, how they should be able to come up with additional strategies or solutions, how to further entice and accommodate, encourage occupiers to come back to the offices and incentivize them to also slow down the increasing vacancy month over month or quarter over quarter. So yeah, that's pretty much the big picture of the Metro Manila office market nowadays.
All right, so just to summarize it all, it's pretty much showing that there are a lot of businesses that really switch to just doing work from home.
Yes, well, number one, it's because of the lockdown, the quarantine, there's no available transport everywhere. And also the fact that the offices that they work in are pretty much hard to get to. That's one of the biggest factors. And, at the same time, there are a lot of other available like ways for you to connect or to meet with a client or still get to do your work efficiently. But at the same time, there's also like a downside of like working from home too much. So we have to find, middle ground for that, right? And I think for any of like for the whole industry, we have to come up with ways on how are we going to do this pivot and how are we going to educate, the occupiers and in a way the landlords on how we could encourage everyone to come back to what's supposed to be the normal moving forward. And, there are a lot of strategies available out there.
Yeah, that's true. And as brokers, you guys, more than just being the bridge and the mediator between the landlord and the tenant rep. So there's this what we call the workplace strategy. I mean, we've been close and we've been working both on that since we're trying to master that craft now, and that's something that we can practically apply given where we are right now. And do you think that's something that you are sharing with your clients right now? Is it effective? How is it working?
Right. Well, when you talk about workplace strategy, it's really more about, number one, really understanding the business of your client, the reason why it's being implemented in other countries, mostly outside of the Philippines, is because you need a team of experts to really get in touch and connect with the decision makers and the business unit heads of your clients. It's not just a real estate move, it's really more of a congregation between the real estate strategy that you have and your human resources and your IT team, like,
Sure.
and aligned with the overall goal of the company. And again, from what I've seen, there's no one size fits all. It's really having that initial touch base with the decision makers of the company, where they want the company to head to in the next short term or long term, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now. And that's how you put together the series of strategies and translate it into down to the real estate and the technology that you put in the different sites that you will be in, or if some of your employees will do work from home, what are the other available avenues for them to do their work and still be engaged in what they do. So it's really a little bit bigger than just office real estate. It's not just about utilization and expansion and whatnot. It's really a deep dive on what the organization does.
That's true. It's very laborious, and it's not just a one-time kind of thing. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of time engagement between the expert, the workplace strategist, and the client and or the landlord.
Yes, it's not just portfolio management and utilization management. It's really, what's your goal? What do we do with our portfolio? How do we bring in other business unit heads, like of course from like even the CFO, like the finance, the cost, the HR, like what are the engagement strategies so we need to do if we're going to adopt this workplace strategy, and then IT, like how do we put in like the technology, what are the available technology and the different sites that we're gonna have. So it's really quite a complicated issue to talk about.
Actually,
so,
it's interesting to talk about it. It's not really part of our discussion right now, but I believe another topic that we can, perhaps plan in the future for a separate podcast.
Yes.
No?
Yeah, maybe that's something we could talk about in more detail moving forward.
Yeah, so let me go back to our main topics. I'm too chatty. And so we know for a fact that pandemic happens every 100 years or so. And there's no specific that you've mentioned, it's not like a cookie cutter kind of thing. No, there's no exact way on addressing whatever issue that we have right now in terms of business. But what do you think would be something that we can perhaps pick up from the most recent recession that I think our generation has seen, back in 2008, right?
Yes, 2008. Well, if you are to compare 2008 and now, it's same but different. This is really a health and safety crisis compared to a financial crisis back in 2008. But I guess I won't dwell too much into that. But I guess in terms of strategies, we have to break it down to two, like the landlord strategy and the occupier strategy. Of course, for example, if I'm a landlord, one of the things that I have to look into now, even back in 2008, most of the developments are concentrated in the central business districts, but very few landlords have actually looked at outside or the fringe areas. I think now it's happened more in the last 10 years. More developments have veered away from the central business districts. I think that should continue to happen. Also because of the availability of labor. We decentralize it, and that's also aligned with the drive of the government to expand to second-tier sites or fringe sites. So that's actually one of the things that they definitely should continue doing. A lot of the national developers are already doing that. Number two would be a focus on better or flexible leases. Hopefully not just when it comes to the rental rates, but other non-traditional leasing formats. Well, KMC Solutions started during the global financial crisis, and one of the reasons why it actually took off is because it kind of offered something different from what a normal traditional lease looks like, right? I remember we started with just a 24-seater facility. I found the office for the founders, and then we were able to lease it out within a few months' time because they needed that flexibility to, we need to operate, we need to still do, a lot of office work, but we don't want to sign up 3-year, 5-year leases. So what is the solution out there that could, address these issues? And KMC Solutions that time, because of that particular need of the clients, they were able to address that, and it's all that's just basically the history, and everything took off from there. Now KMC Solutions is one of the biggest flexible office providers here in the Philippines. So imagine how it grew from just a 40 to 50 seater facility up to I don't know how many seats you have now. You have 17,000? Is that still in the pipeline? I don't know.
Yes, almost 17,000.
So almost 17,000 seats. So if I am a landlord, I would probably be more open to those kinds of a little bit more creative leasing format, depending on what the demand is from the occupiers. Otherwise, there will always be a push and pull in absorption of the vacancy in the market. So that's one of the pivot that I think they should be looking at. Again, also deep dive into sub-markets that matches their growth portfolio, not just both on their end, but also on their occupiers' end. So if they know their clients very well, if they know their tenants very well, it would be good to have a conversation with them, which areas they are looking into expanding, and match that with their growth portfolio, because all landlords, national developers here, they always have a year-on-year growth target that they need to hit, right? And in order for them to be successful, they have to be able to match that, and they know their occupiers really well. Of course, digitalize and look into possible upgrade for their offices, whether it's new, if there's a possibility for them to upgrade their current offices. I know it's easier said than done. It's pretty challenging, and it should definitely be aligned with the employees' health and safety. And the simple things when it comes to managing their property, like how to digitalize them, like veer away from like the old school sign up where you have to write your names and all that. Like, try to digitalize everything. That actually goes a long way. And believe it or not, a lot of occupiers have that on their checklist now. Like before they sign up with a landlord or a building, they want to see how efficient the building is. Not just from the flow of traffic from the ground floor, but also, of course, the technical specifications of the building, if it's aligned with their health and safety policies and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, so that's for the landlord side. For the occupier side, I'm pretty sure a lot of the occupiers have done this when the pandemic hit. Like, number one would really be reassessing the portfolio. So I'm pretty sure a lot of them have already reassessed their portfolio, their utilization. Now I think they also have to reassess if the work from home setup is effective or efficient for them. What are the current challenges that it has posed over like the last few months? Did the productivity increase, or does it really work for them, basically? If not effective, what are the traditional or non-traditional ways that they could address that in order for them to service not just their clients, but their company, and hit all the goals that they need to hit at the end of the day. I would suggest, if you are an occupier who kind of found out that there's something that you need to restructure within your portfolio, I would suggest to run like a labor analytics or a labor demographic analytics scenario. Like, look at where your different workforce is currently located and see how you could talk to a lot of the service providers or even the landlords. You could match that with whatever's available in the market and explore those possibilities into like breaking them down. But at the same time, there's a downside to that. You need to have a good management, like a strong team leader or whoever is managing those teams, in order to ensure that there's a preservation of company culture, engagement, and strong management to make sure that everything will be streamlined properly. So that's one. And I think also look into like if they have renewals, if they have leases that are up for renewal, I think they should look at that closely. See if they should probably run a relocation or a renewal scenario. Try to negotiate fairly and reasonably with the landlord, and look at other options in the market that would probably be more suitable to what they will be needing in the next 6 months. To if they could plan up to long term, then better. They could explore like fitted spaces. I was talking about negative take-up a while ago.
That's right.
Those are a lot of vacated spaces that are available, that are already fitted, mostly furnished. So you would have like less investment capex wise. And now you could also explore. So if you have enough capital, you could refurbish it. It won't cost as much as a new office if you find an office that would somewhat match what you need. But also, for better cash flow management, you can explore third-party OPEX providers who could OPEX the site for you. So whether it's a fit-out contractor or another third-party service provider, that's something that is worth looking at.
I think this is the safest option now.
Yeah.
Not being biased.
Well, it's actually it's a strategic option, because even if you have a lot of cash in the bank, you don't want to spend it all on.
Right.
You have to like mitigate risks by finding ways how you can lower your cash outflow on a monthly basis and still get to operate based on what the requirements are of your head office or shareholders. So you need to balance both. So all of those options should definitely be considered nowadays.
Yeah. So it's safe to say that these business owners should be able to, do an in-depth market research, and know who to partner to. Because it's safer now to have, some reliable partners or perhaps like broker expert that would tell them what's exactly needed to be done. Because typically the old ways of doing an old school, do it your own office is not something that's going to be a trend nowadays.
Right. It could still work. I mean, if you're heavily capitalized business, but at the same time, I see more and more businesses, exploring, OPEX transactions. Obviously, it also depends on how much they're going to end up spending over the term, right?
Yeah,
so it's also balance of cost. Even if they don't spend as much now, how much are they really going to spend over a 5-year or 7-year lease term, for example. So it's really balancing both of that. And then I guess when it comes to both landlords and occupiers and service providers, it's really knowing where the market's headed, what are the new work trends are. But yeah, again, I suggest you don't have to engage a broker right away. You can engage an advisory team. Typically, there is an advisory team which is composed of real estate or office commercial real estate experts who could provide you advice on what to do with your space, or if you're a landlord, and what to do with your portfolio if you're an occupier. So you could engage those services right now, especially if you don't have any expansion plans. If you need help, there's typically an advisory team for any business.
And it's about strategizing.
Yeah.
It's
and execution, strategize and making sure that it's executed.
Yeah, that's true. And since you've mentioned already the other options that we are doing, I mean, all the businesses are doing right now, given the flexibility of working from home or working from another satellite office. So what can you say about remote working and future of a workspace given where the Philippines is right now? It's ending 2020 already. What do you think is going to be the trend? Because there are other companies that has proven that 90% now of their workforce are productive enough on an office setup, but they say they can somewhat live to doing work from home or work near home.
Right. Well, I think first of all, in terms of workplace trends, I've found, I saw an article earlier during this pandemic that the new workplace trend would be offices would now be more of a perk rather than a place to work in. Obviously, there's actually a segment in workplace strategy that talks about activity based working. So you work in an area based on the type of activity that you need to perform. Like if it's a collaboration meeting, you need to have a collaborative space. If you need focus work, there's a place for focus work, and there's also a place for what they call that fun. In order for you to cultivate that kind of sense of team with your workmates, with your teammates. So that's actually something that I find interesting. For the Philippines specifically, looking into the hub home HQ is not a bad idea. Definitely worth looking into. It doubles as a BCP strategy as well.
It's a natural BCP.
Correct. So mostly for one of the biggest takers of the market is of course the BPO industry. And they always have to address the BCP or the business continuity with whoever they're servicing, like any customers, or even if it's an in-house center, they need to address that as well. So, but my suggestion is to really look at the finer prints of the hub home HQ. It's not just about the facility and the space. You have to look at obviously the connectivity.
That's right.
Wherever you whoever you engage with in terms of service providers, or if you're gonna do it yourself, lease a satellite office, from a landlord, you have to make sure that the connectivity is there. And again, I talked about making sure that you have a strong management to prevent any employee fall off, and to make sure that you continue to cultivate engagement and the preservation of like the company culture, which is why the HQ, I think having an HQ component wherein you can have get-togethers there or town halls, I think that's also crucial. While most of the time people could work in the hubs, which are near their offices, near the residential areas within 5-10 kilometer radius, and then of course work from home once a week. Like honestly, given the amount of like online schooling, and this is a real life problem, like online schooling.
I know what you mean.
I'm a parent of like 2 little girls. It's not easy. It's still different when you send your kids to school and you see them, after school, and then you don't see each other for the rest of the day. You go to work, they go to school, and then after that I find it easier than doing online schooling. I feel like I'm, teaching a grade 1 student and a kinder student. It's not easy. So anyway, that's why work from home setup doesn't work all the time. It's good to have, I hate to say this, but an escape from all the home stuff that
it helps
kind of bothers you, going to the hub, a satellite office, or even the HQ. So most of the time you see your office mates in the HQ. It kind of brings back like how engaged the culture was.
Yeah, that's true.
Prior to like the pandemic, and hopefully that's something that hopefully we'll see more of that. And I think we do have a lot of clients looking into those types of solutions right now, and I'm pretty sure KMCS are also servicing those types of clients looking for those kinds of solutions.
Yeah. Actually, you seamlessly kind of addressed the next question that I was going to
did
say.
I?
Yes, but let me add to that, because the next
Alright.
question was supposed to be what factors should the companies reconsider to decentralized workplace, and how this can somewhat help boost the efficiency. So you've kind of mentioned that already.
Yes, they should start with do a demographic profiling of their current employees, and if they want to expand, I think that's one of the initial steps. And reassess their work from home. The work from home. Like if they implemented the work from home for all of their employees, they have to reassess that, see if how it works.
Because honestly, it's not applicable to everyone.
Yes,
There are a group of
department
or individuals that can adapt to a work from home, and they can stay like that forever, practically,
Yeah,
especially we've proven that.
correct, but
But
at
not
the
to
same
everyone,
time, it's not applicable to everyone. There's still some nuances you encounter, like if you have, people who don't answer calls right away. There are a lot of challenges as well. Like before, if you are a team and you're in one office, if there's an urgent matter that you need addressed, you just get up.
It's easier, yeah.
And then go to the next table, which is good, right? But at the same time, there's also a lot of room for distraction. So, like, what if that person is doing focused work and the other person just comes by the table to ask questions that disturbs that person's train of thought? So again, there are a lot of things that you have to assess, and most of the time it's really the occupiers and team heads of the tenant or the client would know what kind of segregation needs to happen if they are to execute a hub spoke HQ model. So that's a conversation that needs to happen between a service provider and the occupier.
Yeah, and I think this is the perfect chance also for me to highlight how KMC Solutions is taking part on, suggesting all these strategies, no? Just like you have been working with a lot of clients, both current clients and potential clients, and a lot of them are on some sort of a wait and see strategy right now, and they're checking on who's done it better or which strategy works better for a certain company. That's why we came up with with a campaign which campaigns different set of workplace strategies. Well, actually work strategies. So those are like 3 H's yun, and that's the HQ or headquarters, the hub and spoke, and then the home strategy. As we have been talking about it earlier, not every strategy is applicable to just a group of people or the whole company, because the company has to have like a deeper knowledge on how these teams are actually working, because there are teams like marketing. They need to, work together, do brainstorming, and push each and everyone's creative juices, right? There are others that are, let's say, on a BPO setup. Some non-voice accounts can perhaps continue working from home, but there are voice accounts that would need to be in a proper space, would have a reliable internet connectivity, and then would have a space that's really soundproof. Then those are the team that would really need to go back to the office and have a proper office setup to deliver their jobs. So things like that, and that's why we kind of understood that we have to intervene by suggesting work strategies and be the ones to actually do the study for them. That's why it's an extra effort for KMC Solutions team, I guess, because we're doing this kind of for free and show them how we can perhaps help them. So let's say HQ, it's not something that our clients would really be willing to give away and say, somewhat others would decide to downsize their HQ,
right,
just to have some cost savings. But that's not something that they can fully surrender to, just saying, okay, let's all do work from home. Because first and foremost, their brand has to be seen, and that signifies that their company is legit. Now they would have to have an HQ. And there are times that would really need to call your team back to the office for some important gatherings, let's say town hall or important matters that needs to be addressed face to face. Therefore, you need to have a physical office. And I think that's where hub and spoke comes into play also. There are people who would really prefer to be in an office environment. Because not everyone is productive being around babies, toddlers, infants, crying around you, and you trying to make your way to get back to focusing to your work. Right? That's why there are like surveys that we've done, like we've talked to a lot of employees and business owners alike, and somewhat half of them are wishing to go back to the office. And that's why also we have to somewhat show them how the offices nowadays are being sanitized, being maintained. So it gives them assurance also that, we want to go back, but these are the dilemmas that we have.
Right. I'm just curious, given the situation, given with what happened, I'm pretty sure in order for KMC Solutions to really capture that market, in terms of pivot, have you redefined the design of your service offices? Have you changed any of it? What are the important details that you've changed aligned with what new normal trends are?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not being host, but I'm just curious. Sure. I just wanna ask about
But we have a lot actually to share. So there are offices, as you know, KMC Solutions has a lot of offices in the metro. We're about in 26 different office locations, and there are offices in our floors that has smaller rooms or bigger rooms. Some would require to have bigger rooms. That's why we give them the option of that. And some would require one seating apart. So we try to take away one desk or one workstation away from the other. And then we do some exercise of measuring. We do actual physical measuring, giving them the CAD files and showing them the other agent is 1 meter or 1.5 meter away from the other. Because everyone is, pretty much trying to make sure that we are following the safety protocols as we go back to the office. So it's quite, a tedious exercise also from our end, but it all comes free, no? So we try to involve our designers in showing them that it is indeed following all the government mandated protocols, and that we are willing to somewhat cater what they need. Some would add more fiberglass divisions, because that's a requirement from their global offices. So we do that, and then we provide them all the schedules and frequency of our cleaning. Because in KMC locations, what we do is we do hospital grade sanitization. There's a positive case in that specific floor of a building, so we sanitize it even though there's no positive case. That's how we do it. Because we are trying to show each and every client that we have that it is indeed safe to be working in a facility, and each and every desk, as you can see from here, like this, there's a sprayable alcohol, no, just to make sure that each and every corner is going to be safe, and when you need it, it's ready. So it's like that. So I think that's why we are, to be quite frank, we're selling a small deals in the middle of pandemic, because some clients were choosing to redistribute their teams. So they're getting small spaces because they're adapting the work near home solutions.
Yeah.
So we help them identify where their employees are living, and we mapped it out like geo mapping. We're partnering with some software applications to do that, and it's not easy. And then we show them the concentration of the teams that they have currently. And with that, we were able to, to help them identify the nearest KMC office where they can, dedicate or assign those number of employees. And with that, they were able to adapt to our work near home solutions. So these employees are not required to like commute far. Some would just need to walk from their homes, and thus it's making it safer for them, no? So if they can't work in their houses because it's noisy and they don't have like, a reliable internet connectivity, so there goes the solution. So some would need to be work from home setup. So we have the CASA, the KMC. So we provide them all the IT hardware, including the internet, a fiber connectivity at home. So that's an option. That's why right now what we are showing actually in our Triple H strategy is that everything can be done. It's just a matter of cooperating and working hand in hand with us and doing the research for them and implementing it for them. So right now, with the technology that we have, the innovations at hand, it's 2020, everything's possible. It's just a matter of understanding how we can, pivot our operating team to doing that. No?
Interesting.
Yes, it is indeed interesting. Plus, talks like this, webinars, since the pandemic has been really helpful to each and every decision maker. They try to listen to each and everyone's testimonials on what worked for them and what not. So I think that kind of helped them to really address their operations on a day-to-day basis, because not every company is the same to the other one. They don't usually encounter the same things. Kaya with that, no, so there are a lot of things going on right now and things are changing day to day. So for you, Cha, as we close this session, how do you think we can reclaim normal?
In terms of reclaiming normal, I think this is the normal moving forward. Of course, there will come a day wherein there's already a vaccine and we're free from the transmission of the coronavirus, but that doesn't mean it will revert back to how things used to be, especially when it comes to like the office market specifically. That kind of opened the Pandora's box to pretty much, so Zoom meetings work, work from home to some degree work. It works. This is, I think, that faster a person or a company or a landlord gets to realize that this is the normal moving forward, and you have to pivot, you have to explore better strategies on how to service the market or the demands of the market, the faster you will thrive. If you continue to tell yourself that no, it's gonna come back to what it used to be. Of course, there are certain things that will come back to how it's how it used to be, like traveling and all that, but specifically to the office market, it kind of changed from consolidating offices. You have to redistribute the different offices that you have in order to service your clients, and also have and to prevent any employee attrition or fall off.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess the new normal, if you want to reclaim the normal now, you just have to really adjust and make sure that your strategies are aligned with what you're trying.
The actual question is there going to be the back to the normal thing? It's more of new normal, no?
Yeah, some
It's
things will come
redefining
back,
normal.
but most of it will be different moving forward. There's a bigger concentration on health and safety of employees. So all the buildings, or most of the office buildings, should look into that seriously. Digitalization, rental payments.
That's right.
Hopefully it's not the usual checks. If anything that you could digitalize and anything that's involving employee health and safety will be a future trend. And again, distribution of the workspaces, or being open to remote work. So that's the normal.
Yeah, and aside from the fact that this year or this pandemic has brought us a lot of negative things in terms of business, because a lot of people, a lot of business owners have lost a lot in this pandemic. I think it's also giving us some good stuff. Like giving us or
Actually,
leading
there's
us
a
to some
silver lining.
realizations.
There's definitely a silver lining. Honestly, if the pandemic didn't happen, a lot of us wouldn't realize that the things that are working now will work, right? So it kind of pushed everyone to be more agile and smarter with the solutions that they provide and not be close to like the traditional way of doing things. So there definitely is a silver lining to that.
Yeah, everyone has been pushed to really think outside
Yeah.
of the box, no?
Yes. I know, like, well,
Yeah, and it's a matter of accepting the new normal. Because I was thinking, even though the vaccine is going to be ready, I think given the realizations that we have ended up realizing because of this pandemic, parang it leads us to some things that we can pick up as best practices that we can
Yes.
adapt to or go back
especially risk management. Like not all of the companies, even if they do have risk management teams, they don't consider a pandemic as like a major risk. But now it's like, what are you gonna do if another pandemic hits? So, there you have to continue to improve any like your best practices, policy wise or strategy wise.
Yeah, that's true. Same with my team in Enterprise Solutions. We have a product that sells BCP, business continuity planning, and very seldom that we talk about pandemic. In fact, I think I just mentioned that once before the pandemic, but we did not really did a specific product that specifically addresses that. And now it's going to be top one of the things that we need to address when we talk about BCP solutions. And good thing that we are becoming more able now in seeing what would help and what would address the pandemic. So many learnings, I believe, aside from many things that makes us down because of this pandemic. But I believe there are many people that has been challenged, and so they're becoming better in what they're doing in terms of their participation in work and their businesses. So I'm thinking that there are many good talent. They've seen the resilient people in their team that has a great impact in making it still work during the pandemic. And with that, we know that a lot of our Filipino people now are unemployed. Dun sa mga doing well in the businesses, to reopen when the market is reopening, and for those who are thriving well, given the crisis, to really discover good talents in the market right now. Because this is the perfect time. It's like resetting everything, no? Well, you'll never know, the best employee right there is just sitting in front of, the TV and looking for a job. So I think it's a good exercise, and for those who are not doing well or delivering well in their jobs, start to be grateful and do better in their jobs.
Yeah.
So many lessons learned, and I think it's a matter of us being updated of what's happening, what's the trend in the market. And I think podcasts like this and webinars are really helpful for those who would wanna be updated on what's happening in the market. So with that, I want to thank you, Chak, for your time in making it to our Gamma site.
You're welcome. Thank you also, Casey. Thanks for inviting me.
That's right. It's been a productive session, and have notes here where I can see, a potential another podcast session that we can talk about with you and maybe with your team. There's just, so many interesting topics that we can talk about, and I believe 1 hour is not enough to talk about those things. And I'm sure all our listeners would want to hear more about it. So there you go. Thank you very much. I think that's the end of our episode for today. To all our listeners and viewers, thank you for staying with us, and see you again on our next episode for Hustle and Grind KMC Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.